Good morning. It's Monday.
Happy Monday.
Howdy, people. It's Monday. It's the last. Is it the last Monday?
Of?
September 2022. It definitely is.
I feel like we just said it's the first Sunday of. Oh man.
Well, oh man. This time thing just doesn't stop. Cliche, cliche, cliche. We hope everybody's doing well.
We do, and that's not a cliche.
That's not a cliche. Good to see you, Korinne, and it's
Yes,
good to be
and
back
you.
with you all. I was gone last week taking care of business, and glad to be back. How are you? How was your weekend?
My weekend, I forget. I don't know.
I saw you were with your friend Amanda watching a movie and having cider.
I was. Yep, I was actually hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate?
With marshmallows. I went to a baby shower for a former student yesterday.
Okay.
So I was near my old home and stopped by to see friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you posted a question on your story that was what movie to watch when curled, or what show, what movie, what to watch.
What to watch.
What to watch when something about the fall weather and curling up.
You just,
because of the cold.
If it's raining and it's fall,
it was a rainy day.
You need to be watching a movie or a whole
show,
series.
something.
So
and I responded with the A-Team.
You were the only male to respond as well. Every other response was
I was going to put
Gilmore
Rambo,
Girls,
Rocky series.
Anything.
Rocky 2.
You know, with Meg Ryan in it. You know.
I just thought I'd throw out a total
you
male.
You really did.
Yeah. So let's get some more suggestions because I was hoping to see the responses on your story.
I did put them up.
Sorry. All right. Well. Okay.
I am currently private though because I got hacked. So. Well, someone tried to copy my Instagram.
Ah, okay.
So,
oh yeah, Korinne.
So if you're already following
Korinne
me,
Baker.
it's gone now. So thank you, Lord.
Well, I got to see David Culbertson over the weekend.
Nice.
He was at the Restory conference where I was at in Springfield, Missouri. This is the Restory Ministries. Greatest resource for our fellowship for LGBTQ and transgender issues. They put on a conference in Springfield on Saturday. We had talked about it, very good. And they did record all the sessions, which are being, rather than just being released, they're being built into teaching series, teaching resources. So that'll be coming in 2023.
Okay.
And so, but also got to see Hans Fate, our rep from Delaware, and Hans Senior and Junior and I, because Junior goes to, he's not really a junior, but I call him Junior, goes to Evangel. We all got to hang out at Big Shots Golf.
Nice.
On last week because they were all there. Maria doesn't believe it, but it's true. It happened.
It happened.
So really good.
Yeah.
And I want to give everybody some updates, big updates today.
Oh.
Yeah, and then we're gonna continue our series on longevity and youth ministry, which this is the second to last. Next week, next Monday, first Monday of October, will be my last.
Crazy.
I'll be signing off from Monday Motivation.
Wow.
And so
you're soon gonna be seeing Monday Motivation streamed, not from the name Lee Rogers.
Yes.
So it's just gonna be just as good.
Yeah.
From another name.
Yes.
Going live in the group.
And so anyway, Jonah Marquez, welcome to the group. I know we welcomed you last week, but I want to welcome you again.
Welcome, Jonah.
Jonah. We do have a couple churches looking for youth pastors. Evangel Heights Sarver, Harvest Church, Trucksville, Wilkes-Barre, Crossroads Community Church, Mechanicsburg, Mount Morris Gospel Tabernacle, Mount Morris, PA. And then here is a new one, which is Central Assembly, Houston, PA, just above Washington, PA. This is hot off the presses. Is also searching for a youth pastor.
Okay.
And so these are all full-time positions, full-time roles. And I would never necessarily encourage, unless you were in a toxic situation, I would never encourage you to leave your ministry now. But if God is speaking to you about transitioning, send us a resume, send me a resume. You have to be credentialed for us to distribute your resume. That is a standard of conduct amongst us in our fellowship. And so, conduct and belief. So we have all that. Also, I want to give an update on on what's happening with leadership of Penndel Youth.
That sounds like a great idea.
And just so that we have fair expectations coming into youth convention and into the fall.
Yeah.
And before that, let's have some convention announcements, including a very important one.
Okay.
Of course, the info, the registration, the media downloads continue to be available. We have passed the regular registration day. We passed early. We have passed regular. And now all that is left is late. Or is that only at the door, Maria?
Now until you're there.
But you can still do online?
Yep.
Okay, you still do online.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And also, how about T-shirts? Give us what's the news on shirts.
T-shirt registration ended with regular. So you can no longer pre-order shirts, but there will be some available on site.
There'll be some available to purchase on site, and we would say arrive early and bring your money.
Yep, because we're not getting too many.
We don't like to have leftovers,
Yeah.
so we don't order that many to sell on site. Also, we are putting a link as I speak into the comments for a letter of authorization. One of the great frustrations for our groups checking in last night is the unconventional requirements Kalahari has on the rooms, which is whoever's staying in the room, there has to be a credit card in somebody in the room's name for it to be used. There is a workaround that Mike McKinney, our rep in Southwest Suburban, discovered last year. Last year, he was at the last minute unable to come and had to send somebody. So he discovered a letter of authorization. It's a credit card letter of authorization that allows you to essentially use someone else's credit card for the room you're staying in. And so this needs to be done more or less before you get to Kalahari. So we're putting the link up now. You can use it, I think, for all your rooms. Let us know how it works for you. But we believe this is the workaround for the painful check-in process that occurred last year. So get the link. You have to download a form. Credit card holder has to sign it. You got to get copies of the credit card, maybe IDs. I'm not entirely sure. The instructions are there on the page in the link. Don't wait. And this should be very helpful. Hey, let's talk about Mascot Mania. I'm very excited. First of all, let's give a little background. Korinne Baker hates The Late Show.
That is all lies.
Hates it.
That is not true. Don't listen to it.
For 3 years, since before she came to work here, she's like, this is played.
What?
No, she didn't say that. But seriously, though, last year, she's like, don't you think The Late Show has been around for a little while? Don't you think we need a little something different? Don't you think you suck?
I never
all that
said
kind of
any
stuff.
Not some of that.
But she said some of it, but didn't say other parts. You can guess which parts were true and which parts were false. So we've got
we're
a new exciting thing.
Yeah.
And Jake Kelly and Jay Hollenbeck are going to run it. Two of the funnest people we know, amazing guys.
Yeah.
And youth ministry leaders. So tell us about it.
So it's the Mascot Mania late night game show experience.
Hey!
Wow. There's going to be mascots running around everywhere. There will be a combination of group activities and individual activities. So what you want to do is purchase your ticket. If you have not yet, we know there's quite a few of you who have already purchased your tickets, but you can do that from now up until the door, actually. But come with your students dressed in something crazy.
Yeah.
Kind of Price is Right-ish, in like they could get picked out of the crowd to participate if they're dressed up. There'll be some good prizes on the line, and there's also an opportunity for you to register a team of like 4 of you and a mascot to participate in the big game Mascot Mania. So there's a lot going on.
A lot
of moving pieces, but I think it'll be really fun.
And we wanted to encourage everyone with the Fall Give, even if you haven't done anything yet. It's not too late to get on board with this. We are believing God for $200,000 this fall for Project Rescue to create a home. We will be 25% of the cost that we'd be covering of $800,000 home for young girls and young boys rescued from the bondage of the cycles of human trafficking. And this is a residential home that's being constructed along with an educational center as part of it, and food and everything, everything you could think of that they would need. And so we're excited to be a part of this effort, and we're going to look for God to do some great things, and we want you to be a part of that.
Yeah, even if you're not going to convention.
Yeah.
Send in your check.
Absolutely.
Or you can give online, penndelyouth.com/give.
Yeah. So the Fall Give will take place at convention, but also throughout the fall if you're not there.
Throughout the fall, we'd love for you to get it in by convention. That would be very helpful for us as we count and calculate, and we want to be able to announce a total pretty soon.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So so we're looking forward to convention, and we know you are too.
Mhm.
Hey, this Wednesday morning is See You at the Pole.
It came so fast.
SYATP.
Yep.
Yeah, fourth Wednesday morning in September, and we're there 7 a.m. local time, which is 7 a.m.
Local time.
at the local school's flagpole. Hey, listen, I don't let familiarity breed contempt in this case. Maybe you grew up with See at the Pole and you think it's played. It's not played for students who are experiencing for the first time.
Yep.
And it's more important than ever that students pray on campus. More important than ever that their peers know that there's someone they can go to for prayer.
Yep.
More important than ever that students publicly identify with the body of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
In an age when people are identifying with all kinds of things,
Yep.
or changing their identities to be all kinds of things, we need to challenge students to apply pressure to themselves and for the gospel by identifying with Jesus at school. And so, yeah, be a part of that. Hey, let me give before we get into the educational, actually, let's do this first, and then I'm going to give an update on DYD search.
Oh yeah, wow. I forgot
Because
about that
I feel like that's the bigger piece, and we want to hold that.
You know, we just gotta keep people in suspense.
Keep
Is that
people
what we're
in
doing
suspense.
here?
So we've been talking about longevity and youth
Yes,
ministry.
we have. This is part 7.
This is part 7, and we have been talking about what you don't need for longevity, key things that you do need. We talked about relationships you need. We talked about relationships you don't need. We talked about personal characteristics you don't need, personal characteristics you need. We talked about logistical things that you need. Work stuff, we called it. But everything related to work, from salary to healthcare to days off to workflow, planning, working through a team. Today we're going to talk about preparation for ministry, learning, developing that call to youth ministry that you have on your life, and how it affects longevity in ministry. And let me just off the cuffs talk about some things you don't need.
Okay.
You don't need fancy degrees. And I say this as one who has a fancy degree. A doctor of the church.
Yeah.
So pretentious. But it's a fancy, I have a fancy degree. I have a fancy degree below that, an MDiv. And then of course I have a bachelor's degree. So I've got the degrees and I've got credentials, right? I had the license, now I'm ordained. So I've pretty well gone through the gamut. And I will just tell you, you don't need these things to be an effective youth pastor. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do what you need to do to fulfill the call of God on your life. So you don't need that. You don't need ministerial credentials to be an effective youth leader or youth pastor. But again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be having it. And I'm going to talk about some of this and hit you pretty hard.
We'll be digging in.
Yeah, we'll be digging in right between the eyes. You don't need... yeah.
Wow.
Hit you between the eyes. We'll dig in deep, but not between your eyes. So let's just talk about this. Education, I would just say, gets kind of a black eye in youth ministry, and I think was really common in my first couple years to hear this said amongst my peers, and I may have even said it myself. Oh, it didn't really help me at all. They didn't teach me this in school, and what a waste. And I know people who've been in ministry long term today who will also insist today that it's a waste. Let me just say, they're wrong for saying that. It's not a waste for everybody. In fact, the research shows it's not a waste for most people.
Yeah.
And here's something else the research shows, that the longer you're in ministry, the more you come to appreciate and realize how helpful your education has been. So in those first couple years, I think there is the frustrations because you're having to learn things, yes, that you didn't learn in school. Like in school, they probably didn't teach you the latest youth group games, so you got to research that every week and come up with it on your own. They didn't teach you the latest trends,
how the parents will be,
or how challenging parents will be. You could teach that all day long in a class, and until you experience that for yourself, so you'll feel like, well, school didn't prepare me, but it did prepare you. It's just there's some things have to be experienced, and culture shifts and changes, so there has to be an ongoing learning process. So let me just say this: over 83% of youth pastors who've served in a church 5 years or more have a degree.
And this is in a study that you did.
This is my study of 79 youth pastors, Assemblies of God youth pastors. who've been in their churches for 5 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
83% have a degree, either an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, master's degree,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 participants had doctoral degrees, PhDs, in fact.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
over 68% had a bachelor's degree or higher. So there's 15% in there that probably had associate's degree or maybe
Mm-hmm.
school of ministry degree, maybe some type of a master's commission or church school of ministry degree. My point is this: 83% went through some type of formal training process.
Mm-hmm.
And
Invested.
there is like a line out there. Well, you can get all that just by reading books or having a mentor or listening to podcasts. You can, but 4 out of 5 youth pastors who are able to survive in their churches 5 years or more went through a formal process. So yes, you can, but for most people, they did go through a formal process. 78% of participants reported having a youth ministry degree or other specialized ministry. So the 83% that had a degree, almost all of them, maybe just 1 or 2, actually did study for ministry. Uh, Now here's a big one, and I want to talk just about the perception of value for the degree. 80% of participants believe their study prepared them for youth ministry. 83.5% believed it prepared them for ministry or leadership in general. 76% believe education played a significant role in their careers. Now listen, I want you to let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
I said 78% have a degree in ministry
Mm-hmm.
or leadership, and 80% believe their degree helped prepare them. That means just about everybody who got a youth ministry or ministry degree believes that it helped them get ready for ministry.
Yeah.
So when somebody says to you, oh, it's not worth it, oh, don't go, oh, it's a waste of money, they are lying. They may not realize it yet, but almost 100% of those who had degrees here responded
Yeah.
that it was helpful to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that is significant.
That is.
And it's different from, I think, the general attitude that is accepted amongst people in youth ministry. And I think part of the problem is people don't stay in youth ministry long enough to realize the full benefit
Right.
of the work they've done
Yeah.
to prepare.
Hmm.
And so now about 63% believe that further education will help them more if they were to keep going back.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience, but I've been open on this podcast before, or on this live stream before, that you should only really you should pursue what you're called to do. So if you're called to be a youth pastor, get a credential, get the learning you need to do that. Pursue it. If you're called to study further, study further.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Not everybody's called to get a master's degree. And if you go to get a master's degree, you're not going to end up looking like me or some other leader you look up to. You're going to look like you with a master's degree.
Right.
So if God's calling you to do it, do it. If God's calling you to get a doctoral degree, go and do it. If he's not, don't do it. It's not going to benefit you if he's not calling you to do it.
I know for me, I got a bachelor's degree, and then I felt like I wanted to continue learning, so I went through other avenues. I didn't get a master's, but I participated in cohorts and different things like that.
Yeah.
To
and
learn
I think that's
and grow,
I think that's really good. And we had a brief conversation before the show about the number of students, quality students that we think would be great to enter ministry, who are staying at school longer and getting master's degrees and things. Yeah. And what I have said is, here's my feeling. I don't think it benefits you to enter ministry for the first time with a master's degree. I think it benefits you to enter with a credential and having done the preparation you need to get to that point. But I think graduate degrees, whether they're master or doctoral, benefit you far greater after you have a couple years of real life experience and can process the higher levels of learning and reading and writing that you're doing through your experience. Because like you said, you got parents, you got leaders with different gifts, you got students who won't be quiet during youth group. And these are all things that you maybe don't learn about on a bachelor's level, and you won't learn about those on a master's level. But if you bring that experience to the table, you process what you learned through all that.
You can apply it in different ways.
Yeah, and it benefits you far, far better to do that. And so we've seen a lot of quality people stay in school longer. I think it's part of the prolonged adolescence that Gen Z is experiencing. But I would just say, I don't know if the master's degree benefits you. It might be a safe place. You might feel good because you know it, you're familiar with it, but I don't know that it's going to benefit you career-wise.
Yeah, and look at all these open churches, just ready. and there's nobody to fill it.
Right.
Not that there's nobody.
There are people,
Yeah.
and we want them to step to the table.
Yeah.
Here's some quotes that we got. I got from the research and from the interviews about education and kind of the shift that people see in their life the longer they stay in. This guy says, "My view is still changing and still forming. When I'm not careful, I say, what a waste," about his education.
Mhm.
But that's not entirely true. A lot of that is not entirely true. My education really did prepare me for ministry. In fact, the more he talked,
Yeah.
the more he came to realize, and he says, I was taught how to process things. This is important.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about the knowledge, a bachelor's degree. Even a master's degree, I think, is more about helping you to think independently, and a doctoral degree gives you a voice on an area of expertise. But high school, here's my theory of education. High school is about learning to follow directions.
Yeah.
And people who graduate high school who are the valedictorians or salutatorians, often they are intelligent. Often they flop at college because there's nobody holding their hand anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so high school, to me, is largely about learning to follow directions and be a part of society. Getting a bachelor's degree is kind of more about learning if you can do that independently on your own. Can you follow directions on your own?
Yeah.
Can you learn? And you get some specialized information. When you get to a master's level, they really encourage you to start forming your own opinions. When you get to a doctoral level, they'll tell you you've earned the right to publish your opinions, because they're very pretentious sometimes. But that is kind of true.
Yeah.
Like, you accept that when somebody has a doctoral degree, they must be an expert in this area. Or when that's why you go to a medical doctor. That's why people go to mental doctors. That's why, yeah. So he says, my education really did prepare. I was taught how to process things. And that is part of what the degree process is about. Not so much about information, he says, but more about how to process these issues. I am mostly satisfied. I don't regret going to school, and having a degree matters to a lot of people. That's true. We are living in a society that values education more than ever, and contextualizing ministry might mean going to get a higher degree. This lady said, at one point I would say I undervalued education. I feel like I'm intellectually gifted, but I don't think I was always that way because I wanted to be led by the Spirit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I find that education for me does not preclude me from being led by the Spirit or prevent me from being led by the Spirit. But some people have the perception that it would, and I think some people do allow their head knowledge to get into the way.
Right.
But I also think people who say they want to be led by the Spirit and so they don't pursue education, I think it's an excuse.
You're holding yourself back.
I think they're holding themselves, and probably covering some type of insecurity about learning by using Spirit language.
Yeah.
Nothing about my degrees, I think, has prevented me from hearing from God. In fact, I think it's helped me to hear more from God because I feel more informed on certain issues. So I feel like the Spirit can give me insight that the Spirit could not give me before. She says, going on, after doing a couple years of ministry, then going back for a master's degree, it was a great blessing. It really took my leadership skills to the next level. And here's somebody who said, I love learning. I loved it. I hear a lot of bashing of that, but I loved it. Yes, there were throwaway classes.
Yep.
But I am of the persuasion that no college completely prepares you. I think my education did everything I was hoping it would do. Most timeless elements were related to the Bible classes, and hermeneutics. So very, very interesting. Now, 94% of participants in this study said that they engaged in informal practices of development, such as reading or listening to podcasts. 85% attend conferences and seminars. The last piece, generally, that I want to cover is ministerial credentials. 87% of youth pastors who've been in a church for 5 years or more have a ministerial credential, and all but one had credentials with the Assemblies of God. 85% of Assemblies of God youth pastors who've been in their church 5 years or more have credentials with the Assemblies of God. And a lot of people say credentials don't matter. You don't need that to be a youth pastor. They're not wrong, but those who are making it long-term in the church, most of them have a credential. And I would say when you have a ministerial credential, it says that you're taking your call seriously. And I want to add this scripture into these thoughts from 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Work hard. King James, which I don't often go to, says study hard. But this is New Living Translation. Work hard so you can present yourself to God and receive his approval. Be a good worker, one who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly explains the word of truth. I think the King James used the word study to show thyself approved, to shew thyself
And
approved.
tissue.
SHEW, it says. Because if you're going to correctly present the word of truth, that the work of that is study.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I think that's why the King James translator used the word study to shew yourself approved. Work hard, this says. So education is not a waste. And I would pursue education within the boundaries and limits of the call God has laid out for you.
Yeah.
And by all means, get your credentials, people. So the highest ranking educational characteristics, youth pastor engages in informal practices to stay current in youth ministry leadership, reading books, listening to podcasts, etc. Second highest, youth pastor holds credentials with the Assemblies of God, about 85%. And number 3, youth pastor has a degree from a traditional college, 83.5%. So a lot of people are down on college. I would just tell you, more than 4 out of 5 youth pastors who make it long-term in the church have a traditional college degree.
Yep.
It's about the process, people. So anyway, next week we'll
Anyway.
talk about spiritual characteristics.
And
It'll
that's
be the last
segment.
one that I'm on.
Wow.
So let's talk about the search process for a new youth director.
Yeah.
And
everybody wants to know.
Everybody wants to know. And what I would just say to everyone at this point in time is this information is for you. I'm not going to get super duper specific with the information per se, but we do want to give everybody an update. The process is in process. A new youth director will not be announced at youth convention.
Correct.
In fact, that's because we don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a search. The search has gone through a first round, and just about everybody who was identified to be a part of the process, almost everybody declined, did not feel led to pursue it. And the committee has not felt a release. The search committee, which is Pastor Don, and I don't say search committee is not right, but it's an interview committee.
Yeah.
And so
and that's
presbyters
right?
would it's Jeff, Don, and our assistant soup would be an interview committee. The presbytery also has say. They have consultants power by the virtue of the bylaws. And so no one's really felt a release. And I think what that indicates is that God is doing something that is not evident yet. And so the search is continuing, and our superintendent is wise. He doesn't want to rush it. He doesn't want to get somebody just so we have somebody in office. Wants to find the right person. And I'll just give some insight into Pastor Don's process. It's a biblical process. He follows an Acts model where the leaders of the church needed to find those who would run basically the food pantry that is, and they said, point amongst you leaders. So Pastor Don, it's not that democratic of a process, but he asked the youth committee to suggest names after a conversation with them of who would be good in this role. And when Doug Sayers and I when I served under Doug Sayers and Doug Sayers stepped down, Pastor Don followed the same process. Right. And the youth committee, which at that time was probably 12 people, everybody wrote a name on a piece of paper. 12 different people wrote down a name. The majority of people wrote my name. And a few people wrote another youth pastor's name, Rob Gillen, who was in the network. And Rob would have told you at that time, told me, and told the committee, I'm not really interested. And so it was evident that there was a consensus in the spirit and amongst our youth committee of what God was doing. Right. And this time, Pastor Don followed the same process. And the 12 or 13 people who were part of the meeting, everybody wrote down a name. Well, 10 different names were given. Right. Last time only 2, and mine were the majority. This time 10. It is evident from the start that there has not been a consensus of what the Holy Spirit has been speaking to all of us, which means God is doing something different that we don't see. Yeah. And there's no need to rush that. I want to just say that I have experienced during this process clearly God's hand leading and guiding me personally. Some of you know that I fought really hard to not leave, to stay here. Right. I didn't want to leave. I turned Springfield down 3 or 4 times to come. worked really hard to arrange it so that I could do what they were asking of me to do while staying in place here. And it just wasn't what they felt was needed. And then eventually the Lord would not give me rest until we shifted our perspective. And that was around the time of youth camp.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of July, we listed our house. It sold within a week. We said, okay, we're moving out on September 16th. September 16th, our house will belong to somebody else, so we need to move out. So we got a moving company, and they moved us out, and we were sure we would move into storage.
Mm-hmm.
I set up a trip to go to Springfield last week. I was there. We set it up 5 weeks ago. The national office said, would you come out? There's Youth Alive candidates coming in to be missionaries. Would you come out and be a part of that? And I said, yes, of course. And there's the Restory Conference, which I talked about. Would you come out? Yes, I would. Well, at the end of that week, on a Saturday, the week before Labor Day, my wife saw a house she liked, which we were praying for. And we put a bid in on that Monday. We closed on that house last week, 26 days from the day we saw it online and 24 days from the time we put a bid in. Unprecedented. And the moving truck, which had picked up our stuff on Friday, delivered it on Friday, the next Friday. And we happened to be there because we had already scheduled a trip. So all our stuff is there, and we have a house that we're going to that we will pay a mortgage on, but it's ours, you know. Mm-hmm. And I just have seen the Lord align these things, and I've had felt like God was saying in my anxiousness and depression of the last couple weeks that he had us in his hands, and he demonstrated that, which gives me, if he's doing that for one family, following his call to Springfield, how much more is he doing that for a network of leaders and churches in the Pendel Ministry Network? So I want to encourage everybody. God is doing something behind the scenes that we don't realize or know as relates to finding a new youth director. And I have every confidence that God is guiding the process and that our superintendent and our presbytery are spirit-empowered individuals who are hearing from God about that process.
Yeah. And we're not nervous.
No, we have a great team here. Yeah. The team has often put things together and prepared them in my absence because most of you know I've traveled around the network and met with you, and they can do that. We've said basically for several months this team could probably function. And somebody needs to make hard decisions and decide on liabilities. But in terms of the day-to-day, we have a great, great team here.
Yeah, so Youth Pastors Retreat will be on. Winter Retreat will be on. We already have all of that moving. PK Retreat will be on.
Yeah, we've got Youth Pastors Retreat is happening. Pastor Don said, let's move it forward. Listen, I heard from a youth pastor, a veteran, a 15-year veteran of youth ministry, said to me just last month, Youth Pastors Retreat kept me from leaving the ministry last year. And that youth pastor's doing great now and is energized and ready, but she was the person was ready to give up. She or he was ready to give up last year. But they stayed at the table. Wow. And now God is just moving in powerful ways in their ministry. So, awesome. And I told that to Don, and Don said, let's move forward with it. Yeah. And so the team will be putting that on. And then also our winter retreat speakers, we've got Jonathan Rivera, DYD of the Florida Multicultural District, is going to speak. Great communicator. No one will be disappointed to hear him from our second weekend. We have Holly Davis coming. She is the National Assemblies of God Youth Ministry Events Coordinator and Fine Arts Coordinator, passionate speaker. She's been doing a lot of retreats and camps across the nation. Then Austin Westlake, Discipleship Director for our fellowship, will be here third weekend. And he spoke at National Youth Convention this last year. Great speaker. And so we're excited. And we've got for PK Retreat in March, Tori Hammer, one of our very own PKs, who is a great speaker, will be speaking at PK. So things are lined up, things are happening, things are moving. This team has things in hand. So
all going to be great.
All right, we'll say.
But there won't be a handoff at convention.
Right. Correct. So there will not be a handoff. There will not be an announcement. I would like there to have been one. But it's okay. God is doing something else. And we trust the Spirit, and I trust our Spirit-empowered leaders. So, hey, happy birthday this week. We got two lead people to say happy birthday. Nate Goldsboro. Eric Goldsboro. Nate is his son who helps us with events. Yeah. Eric Goldsboro, GT Church Kutztown, and Bethany McClure, who does help, I think, lead the youth ministry at Benton, Stillwater, Benton Assembly of God. Happy birthday this week to both of you. And that's all we got.
That's all we got.
So it's a long
Wow.
one. We had big updates.
We did.
But happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great week. We love you.
To those
See
of
you
you
next
coming
week.
to convention, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Wow. Woo! All right.